Welcome to the Bo Benson Show. If you like conspiracy theories, you like what's going on in the government, you like to learn about secret societies, you like to learn about Jehovah Witnesses, this is the perfect channel for you. Please subscribe and make a comment. Welcome to the Bo Benson Show. All right, folks, it's finally here. We're going to be able to sit around and we're going to be able to talk about the organization and its belief systems, where they came from. We'll kind of do a step-by-step. We'll go from the very beginning to more modern times, and we'll discuss what they're doing, what they said, where the beliefs came from, and the things that they have borrowed from other religious organizations. And with that being said, let's get started. All right, so Tim Martin is the person who did the presentation, which we'll be seeing some of the slides from. I'm not going to actually record any of his stuff. I prefer that you guys go back and watch it all yourself. I'm only going to use some of the slides and high points to help the audience understand what we're talking about, and then you can understand where I'm getting this information from. So, like I said, the link to the original video, it's like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours long. You can take a look at it in your spare time. All right, so we know the founder. We'll get to him a little bit later. Let's talk about some of the belief systems that the organization has and why they think that they're the chosen one. So number one, they have confidence in the Bible. Number two, God's name is used. So that's Jehovah. Number three, exposing the Trinity. Number four, conditional immortality. Number five, ransom sacrifice. Number six, not creed bound. Number seven, invisible return of Jesus. Number eight, Gentile times over in 1914. So for some of you, you know what they're talking about. For others, you don't. That's okay. These are the 8 major reasons that the organization thinks that a magical deity named Jehovah chose them, and that they are going to be the ones to rule the planet with the deity Jehovah. Okay, so let's just kind of talk about these real quick, and let's just kind of point out some things. So first off, confidence in the Bible. Well, if you believe in Jesus, I suppose you could say that the Bible is somewhat of a necessity, since it's the only place that really Jesus is really spoken about. And when I say that, they speak to Jesus as being, God. Other historical interactions with Jesus, he's a prophet. Other ones, he's other things. So we'll just kind of push that to the side. Number two, God's name is used. Well, in the belief system of the original Jewish people, they don't even tell you what God's real name is. And Jehovah obviously is not God's real name. It can't be God's real name because the J sound wasn't even being used in that time period. That's an American thing. It's 500 years old. Not to mention it's a mistranslation from a Spanish monk. Everybody and anybody already knows this. We'll just move on. Okay. Exposing the Trinity. So the Trinity, the thing that pretty much most people believe in who believe in Jesus, somehow that was some kind of made-up thing that people believed that was tricked by the devil as their belief system. Now, this one's kind of weird. The conditional immortality. A lot of you are like, what are they talking about? Jehovah's Witnesses have this belief system, for those of you who are not familiar, where you die, you come back, and you go in a place called the new system of things. So they think that planet Earth is going to, I don't know. I don't even know how to really describe this belief system. They think that angels are going to come and kill everyone, and then the angels are going to make animals not eat meat anymore, and then everyone's going to be like happy dandy and lovey-lovey, and that's this new system of things. It's a really bizarre belief system that they have that they stole, and we'll get into that a little bit later. The ransom sacrifice, I'm assuming that's Jesus dying for them. No creed bound. I don't know really what they're talking about when they say they're not creed bound. What I'm saying is that I guess they're trying to say that they don't follow certain rules or something. I really don't know what they mean by this. But Jehovah's Witnesses are absolutely creed bound. They have a thing called the governing body. The governing body created a book for them to follow, which is called the Elder's Handbook. The Elder's Handbook has a bunch of creeds in there that they have to follow, and if you don't, you get kicked out. So that doesn't make any sense, but we'll just skip that. This is weird. The invisible return of Jesus. So they think that Jesus came back in 1914 invisibly. It's a really bizarre thing. I don't really know how or what the reasoning is behind this. They just think that this is the reasoning, that Jesus came back invisible and created some kind of empire on earth, which doesn't make any sense because really not much has changed since 1914 to now. We still have wars. We still have economic crisis. I mean, we just have more advanced technology now than we did then, but people still behave almost identically. Okay, so one of the things that Jehovah's Witnesses are claiming that they invented, or the founder is claiming that he invented, is this paradise on earth. But he didn't come up with this concept. He stole it from someone else. And that person is a guy named Hines, Joshua Hines. And so he was a publisher, and in 1842 he started writing for this Christian Connection, which is a magazine, and this Arianism, which is a belief system that Jesus is really not God. He started writing about this, and then he started writing about this idea about immortality of the soul. So, and he called it conditional immortality, which is the concept of the new system of things. And for those of you guys who are not familiar with this new system of things, what Jehovah's Witnesses are talking about, we'll do an explanation right now. So in the new system of things, it's pretty simple. If you do the rules that Jehovah's Witnesses say, your reward is that your body will be reincarnated. Okay, that's what it is, reincarnation. You'll be reincarnated into a new planet Earth, and the new planet Earth is going to have some physics changed. So you'll no longer die. You'll have a humanoid body, which they say is perfect, and animals won't kill one another. That's like their little selling point. Okay, so now let's kind of dig into that. So now we know that they stole this idea. We know it didn't come from the Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses just kind of added some random things to it. But what the Jehovah's Witnesses believe, which is really weird, is I'll use my example of my mother. So my mother has 3 kids. None of them are Jehovah's Witnesses. We have all left the organization. My mom also has a husband who is a member of the Jehovah's Witnesses as well. My mom was not born as a Jehovah's Witness, so she adopted this religion and then raised us in it. Their belief system is that when this Armageddon comes, before the new system, that once the new system comes and everyone's wiped out and all that's left is little JWs, they'll be reincarnated with these artificial bodies, and the memories of people who are not Jehovah's Witnesses will be removed. Now, I sat down one time and I had a conversation with my mother about this, and we were trying to explain to my mom. I'm like, okay, so you do understand that what your ultimate goal is for you to be dead. And she's like, no, I'm going to be reincarnated in my new system body. And I said, but you don't understand. You just told me that your memories are going to be removed of the people who don't believe in this religion. So that means that your memories of being a mother, the memories of your family you grew up with, are going to be wiped out. And then half of the members of the family that you have that were Jehovah's Witnesses that have left, you'll have no memory of them. So you're going to have only like 1/4 of your memories. So you're basically going to have this young body that is brain damaged and doesn't really know who you are. Because if your memories are gone, those memories are you. If you don't have your memories, the person that you are and the personality you have doesn't exist. So that's technically a death sentence. And then we went further to explain, technically, this creature that is going to be taking your form and is going to inhabit some of your memories, is going to try to pretend it's you. So you're going to be reincarnated. You're not being reincarnated. If what you're saying is true, that means that you don't exist anymore, and that this construct of you is now going to take your place. So your reward is nothing. And it was one of those things that was really, really puzzling to watch them try to rationalize this, because they've always thought that this was a good thing. And then when they are explained in detail what exactly the reward is, you could see that the gears were turning, and they were my mother had a very hard time rationalizing in her mind that was actually good after hearing it being explained in that way. Okay, so these Millerite authors, some of them were being asked to, because they're saying that Jesus is on his way, and then when Jesus shows up, then Armageddon is going to take place. So this whole Jesus is coming, Armageddon is coming, was a really popular thing that was done in 1842, and there was publications saying they're not sure the exact time, which is what Jehovah's Witnesses do when they're saying that Armageddon is going to come any moment. You can't miss it. You've got to do what we tell you, or you're going to miss it. When Armageddon comes, you're going to be screwed, and then you're going to end up dying at Armageddon. That ideology, that brainwashing technique, was actually started by the Millerites, and it was started in between March 21st, March 21st, 1843 to 1844. This was the first end of the world prediction, and that you had to be on board, and that only if you believe us will you get this reincarnation. So that Armageddon, guessing the time of Armageddon when Jesus comes, is started by the Millerites. Jehovah's Witnesses are just taking the same Millerite false predictions and screw-ups and then adding them to their own religion later on. And you'll see they'll do it in 1914 and then 1975, and I forgot the last one that they did. I honestly forgot all the Jehovah's Witness end of the world predictions. There's so many of them. But anyways, and then in October 1822, October 22nd, it's called the Great Disappointment, because Jesus didn't come. Now, if you guys know anything about Jehovah's Witnesses and the 1975 prediction where they're building a giant mansion and the second president was preparing for Jesus to come back, that whole process, that whole kind of get you psyched up for Jesus coming back, and that he's going to come on earth, and that he's going to be with his chosen people, blah, blah, blah. That weird relic, that weird belief system, isn't them making that up. It's not them making false predictions. It was them copycatting the Millerites in doing that. It is a technique to acquire the masses. That's all it is. Okay, some of you guys have been around for a while are going to notice some of these names, like Sunday Adventists. So these was a group that had some of the belief systems that Watchtower has, but not all of them. And basically what you're going to see is you're going to have a bunch of offshoots of different religions with ideologies that are similar to Jehovah's Witnesses, but not exactly the same as the Jehovah's Witnesses that you guys know. So the Adventist Church, American Ministries, and a bunch of others, they start to actually break away from the false predictions. Then they start saying, well, I like this, I like that. And then we get to what we all know is Watchtower. Okay, so like I said, so the Sunday Adventists, they were stealing from the Millerites. Then the Sunday Adventists then started branching off. They became the Church of the Blessed Hope, Advent Christian Church, American Mennonites, New Covenant Believers, New Covenant Fellows, Lord Hymns Mismoved, Layman's Home Ministry Movement. I mean, there is just a huge list of these little churches. 1928, the Christian Millennium Fellowship, and then okay, let's let it go. Okay, so there we go. You get 1881, you get Zion's Watchtower, you get the Christian Millennial Worship, 1931, you get Jehovah's Witnesses. Okay, then they get the Don's Bible Students, and then 1925, you get the Servants of Yahweh. 1918, Pastures Bible Institute, 1936, Watchtower of the Morning, 1918, Stand Fast Bible Students, and so on and so on. So you can start seeing this branching of these religious ideas. And you can see that Jehovah's Witnesses are just kind of in the middle, right? So I'm gonna show you guys some of the notes that I got from our Jehovah's Witness literature, and then what we've got from watching this, and we're going to kind of do a comparative analysis so you can see it more plainly. All right, so let's take a look at some of these notes from the stolen beliefs of Jehovah's Witnesses. So Jehovah's Witnesses stole beliefs from the Millers. We just learned that. So what did they steal? So the World Herald for title of books and more magazines. So what this is saying, what I'm trying to tell you guys, if you look at Jehovah's Witnesses' old literature, the heralding this, the herald this, the herald that, that is Millerite talking, and Millerite books and magazines were using that title before the Jehovah's Witnesses. They stole it because it was popular. Okay, so the Millerites in 1846 started, and it's hard for me to pronounce this word, Christadelphians. Number one, pacifists, no war service. If you leave, salvation is lost. So Jehovah's Witnesses stole this. So the pacifist belief system the Jehovah's Witnesses claim, which is so important, makes you godly, was stolen from this group in 1846. If you leave, salvation is lost. So this is the group that started the whole shunning practice, that if you leave the organization, you leave this one particular church, then salvation is just lost because you can only get it from this one source. So one true religion, right? The Christianity's version of this is a Millerite construct, which Jehovah's Witnesses stole, saying that they're the only one true church. Okay, so stolen material in 1897, the Church of God General Conference of the Abrahamic Faith. They said, one faith of Abraham, literal kingdom on earth in the future. So the paradise on earth, that was a belief system that this group started. The Church of God's General Conference of the Abrahamic Faith started that ideology. And then part two, it says, denying the Trinity, except for denying is misspelled. So denying the Trinity and saying that Jesus isn't God and the Trinity is a Christendom thing was started in 1897 by an outside group, and Jehovah's Witnesses adopted that. 1888, the Church of Blessed Hope, New Truth, New Light. So saying we have new light, that was started by the Church of Blessed Hope. That whole new light thing that they're constantly talking about, and how doctrines can be wrong, but that's okay because they got new light. Well, that was originally called New Truth. That's why sometimes they call it the Truth. That's what Jehovah would say. The Truth was stolen from the Church of Blessed Hope. Resurrection on earth. So these are the ones that were saying that you're going to die, be reincarnated onto earth. That belief system is a branch of the Millerites going to this other group, which then threw that in there and made up this resurrection on earth with this new body, and that all those memories of the old people are gone and all that stuff. That was stolen by Jehovah's Witnesses from another group called the Church of the Blessed Hope. All right, so going further back in time, another group that was doing this is the Advanced Christian Church. So in 1855, not all Christians go to heaven. So the idea that you don't go to heaven, that you have 144,000, that was borrowed from the Advanced Christian Church. Conditional immortality, the new system. So if you're not a member of Jehovah's Witnesses, you're not going to make it. You have to be a member. It's like, you get your Costco card. So the conditional immortality was coming from 1855 from the Advanced Christian Church. So that's stolen doctrine. So now we're going to start talking about the teachers of Russell. So Charles Taze Russell is the founder of Jehovah's Witnesses. So George Stetson and George Storrs, also Jonas Wendell from 1815 to 1873. These are the people that were teaching this stuff, and our guy, Russell, was listening to this stuff, writing it down and taking notes, and was stealing stuff and making up his own stuff, or claiming other people's stuff was his own. Okay, so these are the guys that were teaching our boy. So Jesus will return in 1855, Jesus will return in 1873 and 1874, making false predictions. So Jehovah's Witnesses were coming, Jesus is coming dates and stuff were stolen. Jesus will return invisible was stolen from these people. Jonas, Wendell wrote a book, 1875, The Present Truth of Meat in Due Season, 1870, spiritual food. So when they're always talking about that spiritual food and the food and making that weird narration about teachings being spiritual food, that was also stolen from other people. Jonas was the one that was originally saying that and using that stuff, and the Jehovah's Witnesses were stealing it. To kind of give you a visual aid to kind of see this, so in 1844, you can see one of the guys that they were stealing stuff from. He was making these predictions. Midnight cry, Jesus is back. So he was predicting in 1874 that Jesus was going to come back and he was going to cry out and everyone was going to be so glad Jesus is back. And then from 3.5 year harvest to 1878 is the Bridge translation. So basically what this guy was saying is that there's this harvesting period, right? So the Jehovah's Witnesses are saying the same thing, that, oh, this is the time of the harvest, right? When talking about that, they're going to come and get the Jehovah's Witnesses and stuff. This harvesting talk that Jehovah's Witnesses have is completely stolen. Okay, so Barber is the one that did the harvesting talk. He's the one that talks about the Jehovah's Witnesses taking this and basically used it. So 1876, these two guys break away. Now, he claimed in 1914 the gentle times would be over, and this is when, like, okay, so there's this harvesting time period, and then the gentle times is over. So this idea of 1914, the Jehovah's Witnesses believe that Jesus came back. This was created from another false prediction, obviously from this other gentleman, and the Jehovah's Witnesses just kind of took parts of it, kind of made their own little soup out of it, and then started teaching it to Jehovah's Witnesses. So if you ever talk to a Jehovah's Witness and you ask them about the 1914 thing and the generation that never passed, and you can always kind of get this weird, bizarre ramble about how it's true and Jesus was invisible, but I'm going to be honest with you, it's so convoluted and weird and nonsensical that I don't honestly understand it, because every single time a Jehovah's Witness tries to explain it to me, I ask the same question to another Jehovah's Witness and they explain it slightly different. So they've changed it so many times that it's hard to follow what exactly they believe. But basically they're saying that Jehovah came in 1914. Or not Jehovah, but Jesus came back invisible, which obviously didn't happen. So this whole, talk about the harvesting and the fruit and spiritual food, all this stuff was stolen from this guy, and the Jehovah's Witnesses were just borrowing it. Okay, so let's look at some more of the stolen belief systems Jehovah's Witnesses were obtained from different people. So George Storrs. Number one, the conditional immortality, obviously the new system. Passover celebrates once a year. Christ's ransom sacrifice provides restitution over mankind for mankind's restoration for a paradise on earth. So we talked about these other groups. They got it from them. They took it from these guys. And then we get the last one. The Great Pyramid of Egypt coordinates with the Bible. Jehovah's Witnesses are obsessed with the Great Pyramids. Their old literature is all about Egypt and how Egypt, somehow the pyramids and measuring them and a bunch of other shadows and crazy things is how you make these predictions about the end of the world in 1914. All that bizarre stuff is all from his teachers, and that he stole this stuff, and so on and so on. Okay, let's get a little more in depth with this stuff. So Nelson, 1844 to 1914, false predictions. He's the one that was saying Jesus is going to come back. He made some alterations when Jesus didn't come back. We'll talk about that here in a second. 1844 to 1874, Bridge Groom Terrace. Now, I know that's relevant, but I can't remember what it was for, honestly. But in 1874, the midnight cry, Jesus is back. Jesus coming back failed. Jesus comes back as an invisible spirit instead. So when Jesus didn't come when they were predicting, this guy was the first to do that, and then obviously Russell was stealing this from him. 1874 to 1878, three and a half year harvest. The harvesting term we always hear of Jehovah's Witnesses. That's where it's coming from. The harvesting of people. JW's used this term harvesting and harvest. We see all that terminology, that ideology of using that, and people harvesting that is coming from these other gentlemen. This is coming from Nelson. All right, guys, so this is where the stuff starts to make a lot more sense, and you start to realize why Jehovah's Witnesses are the way they are and what they are. So 1878, the Bridge Translated Bible. So there is a retranslation called the Bridge Translated Bible. This is why Jehovah's Witnesses really like the King James Version and talk about it, because it uses the Bridge Translated Bible. 1914, gentle times are over. So remember, the guys that we're talking about with all this crazy stuff that we've been speaking about, they wrote their own Bible. Jehovah's Witnesses are using it. This 1914, gentle times is over, was coming from them. And then becomes Jesus came back. Russell sells his clothing store for $3,000. Today's market's around $7 million. Okay? So, because the end of the world was coming, this is the thing you guys got to understand. 1879, Russell sold his store thinking the end of the world was coming, and he was getting a place in heaven's leadership. So, he was following these guys. They thought the end of the world was coming. He believed the end of the world was coming. He sold his store, which was very profitable, took that money, was, doing stuff with the church and stuff like that. When he realized, obviously, the world didn't come to an end, and he got rid of his business, he didn't know what to do. And so that's when he decided that he was going to start doing the Jehovah's Witness thing. You don't understand? Like, he gave his fortune away to these people, and he realized, oh, well, wait a minute. Nothing happened. We're still here. What am I going to do? I was tricked. So then he took the very thing that tricked him in order to get his fortune back. He went and used the same scam that was used on him on you. So now you have an understanding of what the real reasoning for Jehovah's Witnesses religion. Basically, he fell for it. Now, he believed this stuff. I really believe that he did. He gave up his fortune, lost his fortune, was in desperate need to get money back. Because, I mean, when you're rich, your life is, you know, you have a, like, the way the witnesses talk about him as if he, like, gave up his fortune and he didn't really care and blah, blah, blah. It's like he's like some kind of hero. No, he was a sucker who got taken advantage of and then realized, hey, I'm going to do the same thing to other people. And we know for a fact that he was a con artist, okay? If you know the history of Charles Taze Russell, he lied in court multiple times. He scammed his wife out of money. He scammed cancer patients out of money. What else did he do? So he sold this magical wheat that he said could cure cancer, which obviously it didn't. Got in trouble with the government for that. Obviously, he created Jehovah's Witnesses, which they were Zion's Watchtower first. Because he was desperate for money, it put an opportunity for someone to step in here and use him. So he wanted to make money. He had all this knowledge of all this, you know, religious relic crap that was really popular then, and he knew it was really useful for selling to people. All right, so you guys kind of know the story from this point. Most of you guys do. So this is the part that most of you don't know about or don't understand or ignore. I don't know why. But John D. Rockefeller, all right, so this is the gentleman, if you guys know about, you know, the Rockefellers, they're really big Zionists. When he sold his stuff, Charles Taze Russell was desperate for money. He wanted to rebuild a church. He started his new church. He wanted to make money again. He made a deal with the Rockefellers. The Rockefellers started financing him. He invented, sound to movie. Charles Taze Russell did with the backing of the Rockefellers. They started pushing the Zionist movement after this. So all this stuff that Jehovah's Witnesses had, that there are similarities to Zionism and then obviously the Freemasons. But when you see the Rockefellers come into the picture, you can see the Jehovah's Witnesses have this huge flip where they create this weird hybrid Zionist religion, which is Christianity and Judaism mixed together in a hybrid religion. So Jehovah's Witnesses are a hybrid religion, and this was something that the Rockefellers wanted. Now, there's lots of, speculation why they wanted to do this. There's all kinds of conspiracies, is what I was trying to say. We're not going to talk about any of those. Those aren't relevant to our story about Watchtower at this moment. So we're not going to get into that. If you guys want to research that, go ahead, look at other videos. We kind of talk about this, but we're just going to push that stuff to the side. We're just focusing on the historical data right now. Okay, so this is where the stuff gets kind of weird, because the Jehovah's Witnesses start coming out of, Christianity, and the Judaism starts coming in here. So 1881, it's Zion's Watchtower, the Herald of Christ Presence, text version of all issues for 1881, edited by Charles Taze Russell, first president of the Watchtower Society. There's PDFs versions of this, are fully searchable, on book markets and such. And magazines edited as Watchtower, and publications by Jehovah's Witnesses. So all that stuff, Zion's Watchtower, the founder, Jehovah's Witnesses, that's what this is. Obviously, those of you who are familiar with Jehovah's Witnesses or former Jehovah's Witnesses know this. Now, here's the thing that's really interesting. So the new covenant in Hebrews 8 isn't applicable to the gospel church, but to the Jews. He believed that he is the true Jews, God's anointed people. So Jehovah's Witnesses are telling you they're God's anointed people. They're telling you they're now Jews. Because remember, the Rockefellers, that Jewish family, is paying for this alteration of, gospel church to now Judaism. And so now they're blending it. And so that's when you start seeing these weird blendings in this kind of like transitional period. Okay, so remember Charles Taze Russell, he's the one who's now started the Jehovah's Witness, Zion's Watchtower. This is what he's teaching. This is his belief system, that the Jews are the chosen people, and the Jehovah Witnesses can become the chosen Jewish people now. That's basically the selling point in the belief system that the Rockefellers have decided to introduce into the United States. Now, some of you guys are older are already going to know this, and some of you younger Jehovah's Witnesses have no idea about some of the stuff we're going to talk about. So, 1909, because of the Zion's Watchtower split up, New Covenant believers, and then the New Covenant fall. These are all associated belief systems, Jehovah's Witnesses. 1874, Jesus returned invisible, which you guys missed. JW's taught up until the 1920s. Russell dies in 1916. Okay, so we know that Jehovah's Witnesses were teaching this until the 1920s. So shortly after Russell dies, you're going to see some other alterations with the Jehovah's Witness belief system. Okay, so like I said, we're not going to go and we're not going to pay too much attention to conspiracies. The only one that we're going to talk about is there is evidence in court showing that there's a possibility and a link between Marxism, right? So the Marxist movement, and there's possibly a connection between, obviously, the Rockefellers and then Charles Taze Russell. And so what you're going to see before you, here I'll kind of read this. Charles Taze Russell hated having sex with women. He preached abstinence even in marriage. He also had many affairs with young girls. Okay, so for some reason he was he was trying to teach his members not to have sex and to hold back. And at the same time that he was teaching this and then doing this to his wife, he was trying to seduce young girls. And when I say young girls, you all know what I'm talking about. So obviously this is a contradiction. Okay, and the reason we know this is because one of the little girls gave a letter that he wrote to her about him being a jellyfish and moving around. And basically he said, if you don't give me the attention I want, I'll go somewhere else. I guess he was trying to sleep with this little girl. What ended up happening is she told his wife. His wife found out. They went to court. She showed the record to the court. He knew the court was going to side with her because it was obvious that he was having affairs. He donated his entire fortune to the corporation of Watchtower, which was Zion's Watchtower at that time. So when she won the court case against him, he had no money and not a dime to his name, because she would have been able to take part of half his fortune. In order to keep that from happening, he gave a donation of everything he owned to the church. And as soon as the court ruled in her favor and they awarded him, but he had nothing, then she got nothing. And then as soon as the divorce was final, she moved away. They gave all his money back. So, like I said, he's a criminal. Based on what we know for a fact is, we know that he stole information. We know that he was associated with the Zionist movement, as obvious. He's associated with the Freemasons. We know that he was making fake wheat and stealing money from cancer patients. He was also in court claiming that he speaks Hebrew and Greek. And when they challenged him on this, he had to admit in court, because he can't read Hebrew, he can't read Greek, so he lied about that. That was another thing that happened. He was a compulsive liar, and that he slept with children. So these are all the things that we should know about the Charles Taze Russell character. Okay, so then he dies, and then you get a guy named Joseph Franklin Russiford. So Judge Russiford is what he's known through from 1869 to 1942. He changed the group name to Jehovah's Witnesses in 1931 to emphasize its membership belief that Jehovah and Yahweh is the true God, and that the witnesses were his special chosen followers. So the more modern belief systems, like with shunning, came from this gentleman. And he was very, very strict. One of the other things about the other guy, the previous guy, the founder, is that he had an open forum about criminal activity. Like, you did something, you'd be judged by the group and then kicked out, depending on what you had done and what they decided. The judge here, Judge Rutherford, the judge, I'm just going to call him the judge, he didn't like that at all. He was a lawyer, and he was the previous guy's main lawyer. He somehow was able, and I don't exactly know how he did this, we just know in court, he was able to throw out, like, basically at that time period, the board of directors, the owners of Watchtower, and was able to somehow acquire them. Now, there's speculation that it was his political connections, because we know that he was really into Hollywood, and there is a possibility, and I'm going to say possibility, that there was some corruption that took place with the judge and stuff, and that there was some kind of secret society stuff going on, because we know that the Rockefellers were involved with this, but at this point, I don't know if it's the Rockefellers or if it's a different Masonic group, but the Jehovah Witnesses at this point in time have become 100% pure Masonic belief systems. So if you know Masonic belief systems, that's what Jehovah Witnesses, they are. This is when the full turn from, they went from obviously being, a Christian to a blend between Judaism and Christianity, and then they turned into full Masonic belief systems at this time period. So this is the history of the Jehovah Witnesses. You can see how they took things from other people, and then it led to what they are now. Okay, so now let's kind of talk about that. So about Judge here. So he was a lawyer for the founder, JW's. He altered the doctrine. Okay, so basically he changed the Jehovah Witness doctrines to things that he believed in. He had a lawsuit. He was complete control over Watchtower. We already talked about that. The 7th volume of studies. So the seventh volume of studies in the scriptures, 1918. Predictions in 1918. Jehovah Witnesses made several predictions in the book. The finished ministries, including. Okay, so the judge did a lot of doctrinal changes, and he created a lot of books, and they're very bizarre and strange. Some of the changes is the destruction of the church and the death of millions of church members. So he's saying that there was a bunch of churches were all going to die. They call it, I forgot the name that they call all Christians, Christendom. The glorification of the church in the spring of 1918, possibly on Passover, the end of the World War I around October 1st, 1917, the destruction of all governments in 1920, and encouraged Bible students to buy war bonds. So these are some of the things the Jehovah's Witnesses did that were viewed as kind of controversial. Okay, and then so all this stuff caused a fraction of new churches. Just one example: layman's home ministry movement. So Joseph Franklin Rutherford, he was a Hollywood elitist. He participated in prohibition. I don't know why I just completely flipped my head. So he was involved with the mafia. Okay, so basically there's so much about Judge Rutherford that's bizarre and out of this world. He's a really interesting character. I'm going to do just a few of the big ones. So he created a mansion called Bethlehem that he thought that reincarnated members of the Bible were going to come to. Obviously never happened. He built this mansion there. He was a raging alcoholic. He had some kind of issue with one of the publishers he didn't like that was from the original founder. There is a rumor that he actually hired a hitman to kill that individual. He found out about it from someone who either was involved in the hit, who didn't want to do it, and told him about it. He told the police in a letter saying that if he died under mysterious circumstances, not to blame Charles Taze Russell, that he forgives him for it. He committed adultery on his wife with his nurse. His nurse left her husband, then was living with him. He would get violently drunk. He'd become physically aggressive and violent with people. He was very verbally abusive. He was very mean to women. I mean, he's just got a list of crazy stuff. And then when you start getting into his family, you find out that his brother was a crooked cop. His dad was a really shady character. He himself was involved in crime growing up. I mean, it's just list after list of a list of things. The shunning policy of Jehovah Witnesses was created by him. The two-witness rule to hide people who like touching children was created by him. Oh, what else was there? There are some other interesting things about this gentleman. He went to brothels. He got caught going to brothels, and people tried to kick him out for that. What else did he do? He was associated with the KKK. He was associated with Hollywood. He wrote letters. Well, this is the part that's really strange. He wrote letters that was against the Jews to the Nazis before the Nazis, people knew what the Nazis were doing to the Jews, which is really strange because the founder was a Zionist who was working with the Rockefellers, and then it almost appears as if he was turning on the Jews, which is really strange, the history. So I don't know what the reasoning was or why they did this or were doing this. If you go to some images of Kingdom halls, they did have Nazi flags around, depending on where they're at the time, which is really interesting. I mean, there's just a list of things about this gentleman. There are some channels out there that have full breakdowns of his history. It's pretty gnarly. So those are just the really big ones that I can remember. There's other things too that are interesting, but these are just, the guy is really bizarre. I'm just going to say that. I'm almost going to say, in my opinion, he's so out there and weird that I think that, I mean, I know he did bad stuff, and I know he was drinking and probably doing drugs, but there's no evidence that he actually used drugs I'm aware of. I'm just saying that. I'm just saying the lifestyle he had and the way he behaved, it wouldn't be very surprising. In Hollywood, alcoholism, money, all these women, all this other stuff. He was a degenerate, just absolute degenerate. So he was so out of control that in July 1939, his legal consult, which is Owens, actually resigned because he couldn't deal with him anymore. And they laid out all kinds of his drinking, his out-of-control partying. He would go to the conventions, be completely hammered, so drunk that he can't walk or talk. There was some talks about sometimes him urinating on himself because he's so intoxicated. Okay, so there's some other things. We're going to get to the most important thing is obviously the Hollywood thing, participating in Prohibition. So obviously he's associated with the mob. But there's a thing called the Cleburne County Draft War. So in 1918, J.W. shot and killed a police officer recruiting for the war. Police shot out J.W. members, led the Rutherford arrest, as well as several other leaders. J.W.'s claimed because of the flag salute. These changes were brought up as well. An argument was made with J.W. Watchtower was released. Okay, so what you guys can look at, if you look up this Cleburne County Draft War thing, what you find out, which is really interesting, is that they came to draft some of the Jehovah Witnesses. The Jehovah Witnesses didn't want to do the draft, so they pulled guns out and shot the police officer. There was a full-on shootout with the police. The police came back the next day with 40 officers. 2 of the officers had Tommy guns. And if you know what a Tommy gun, it's a machine gun. So because there was so much fighting, they weren't going to go down. And then they finally gave up. Once they realized there were 40 officers and some of them had machine guns, then they decided that they're going to give up. The weird thing is Jehovah Witnesses, and most people, they have this story about the flag salute. So there was another situation with the flag salute where what was going on is witnesses were being told to salute the flag. They're refusing, and they were being viewed as like disrespecting the country and things of that nature. And they were being arrested at the same time that this was going down. So I think that the flag salute caused the violent interaction because some people were being arrested for this. And then there was some kind of deal was made with Judge Russifer with the U.S. government, and then he was released. And then in court, there was a fighting, you know, where we have the right not to salute the flag, comes directly from the Jehovah's Witnesses. So it's kind of a weird thing that the right not to celebrate the flag or to refuse the flag was made because of the Jehovah's Witnesses, because of this shootout. Now, there is something else that it's kind of weird here is, and I don't have the names for this because you have to look it up yourself, but I'll just tell you about the event. So there is a child that didn't do this flag salute that Jehovah's Witnesses brought in the court we're talking about, and the child was taken away from the Jehovah's Witness parents and put into the foster system. After they won the court case, and they used this incident as a reason to push this legislation, the Jehovah's Witness family that lost the kid just left their kid in the foster system and didn't take them back. It's really, really bizarre. Okay, so remember, we're not talking about conspiracies in this video. We're just talking about some, information that is true. So we do know that there is factual information that the Jehovah's Witness organization has ties to certain secret societies. So one example is the Skull and Bones, and we'll talk about that right here. So 1953, Dwight Eisenhower took office. The Jehovah's Witnesses founder was from Pennsylvania. His name was Charles Taze Russell. He is the nephew of William Huntington Russell, one of the founding members of the Yale fraternity, whose members include Bush, President. Legally, club is known as Russell Trust. Okay, so the legal name is called Russell's Trust. Just so you guys don't know, the Skull and Bones Society that's at Yale, that's what we're talking about. Okay, so Russell Trust. So Russell Trust is the legal name for the Jehovah's Witnesses. So that's their money. That's where all their money goes to. It goes into this trust. Okay, so check this out. So Russell Trust just happens to be the only trust in America which does not have to report its finances to the Secretary of State. This example this came about by special act of legislation in the state of Connecticut, just shortly after D. Wright D. Eisenhower took office. So President Eisenhower was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. His parents were devout Jehovah's Witnesses during his presidency. So a lot of people don't know this, is that Eisenhower was a Jehovah's Witness. He passed legislation saying that Jehovah's Witnesses, his church, right, his Masonic order, doesn't have to report to the United States government. So another thing that's really interesting about this, and I don't know if this is in the notes or not, but that trust that supports the Jehovah's Witnesses that doesn't report to the U.S. government is the same trust that supports the CIA. So the Watchtower's money goes into that trust, and that trust is used to, I don't know how to say this, advocate money to the CIA, which is really weird. So this is the second president, Joseph Franklin Rutherford, Judge Rutherford. These are just some, let's see if I missed anything. He died from rectal cancer, accused of committing adultery with his nurse that lived with him. He also she also divorced her husband. Okay, alcoholism, yeah. Verbally immensely abusive to staff. Yeah, family was part of organized crime. We talked about that. Brother shot and murdered an innocent man. We know about this. The accusation he was going to kill one of the Watchtower publishers. We talked about that. What's part of this? Oh, what's part of the Skull and Bones fraternity group? We talked about that. Group finances that we know as. Okay, we talked about that. Started the shunning policy. I think I mentioned that. started child abuse records, the blue file, hidden from the police, protecting members. Okay, yeah, okay. I know there's more stuff to this gentleman. I think personally that he's the one that completely collapsed the church into what it is now, the degenerate society that it belongs to now. I think he's the main corporate or the main person that caused this, but the Frankist started with Russell. Russell is probably a Frankist, and the reason I say that is his dealings with these young girls, and then how the court was basically letting him get away with it, was showing that he was very well connected. And if he had those connections to the Rockefellers, very well connected, a lot of deep state stuff going on there. And then when it got to the second president, the Frankists had already got there. Frankists only put other Frankists in positions of power, and Frankists are degenerates. And you can definitely see that they put a total degenerate. And they knew he's a degenerate, and I'm sure they had all kinds of stuff on him, and he was doing all this kind of criminal stuff for the Frankists. And then we know that it was really evident that what this guy was doing was out of control, and it was getting a lot of attention with the media and stuff and the government. And so after the second president, they were like, okay, we can't have this happen anymore. This is out of control. We need to get some checks and balances. And then they started the whole governing body process. But we've known that governing body members have been part of some kind of Masonic group. And then all this Masonic stuff is just everywhere from this point on. So the founder had Masonic stuff in there. And it's almost like he was being introduced. I don't think he was born into the Masonic order. I think that he learned it as he got older. But I think that the second present judge family were Frankists and were Masons, Masonic order. And then everyone from there is Masons. So Jehovah's Witnesses literature is just Masonic symbols everywhere. Let me show you an example. So go to jw.org, and then you'll look up the online Bible, and you'll see you have this Bible with this diamond in it. This is a Masonic symbol. The reason is these Frankists that take over, that have this Masonic belief system entwined with them, they do a lot of ritualized sex things, and you'll see that Jehovah's Witnesses have a lot of deviant things in their literature. That's really bizarre. I'm not going to go and name a bunch of them or anything, because we've already talked about them in the past, and you've seen, like, the videos I've written before. It's pretty obvious. I really want you guys to have an understanding of Watchtower's history. So, Jehovah's Witnesses' history is very interesting. It starts out as a Millerite belief system that transfers to a couple of different, preachers. Then it makes it to, Charles Taze Russell. Charles Taze Russell loses his money. He then makes a deal with, wealthy aristocrats. They start to change the religion. They combined Judaism and Christianity, and then they have a little flip. Then they start bringing in lots of Masonic ideologies into there. There's books about it. They get into Egyptian belief systems, mixing into Christianity. It's just this weird mixing of all these different cultures and religions. And then you get into the, Frankfurt stuff starts getting in there, and you get the Mason stuff. The Jehovah's Witnesses is just a huge mess of random religions. And good or bad, that's up to you to make the decision. I just want you to know what they are, how they got there, and that this isn't new. It didn't get made up. It wasn't brought to by Jehovah. It was completely and utterly stolen. Everything they've done, everything they said, was done by someone else and was stolen from some other person. There's not one belief system, not one term, or nothing that is unique to them. They are completely and utterly just a random stolen religion. Now, the really interesting thing is the belief systems that they currently hold and tell. There's no telling what Watchtower is going to become in the future because they're like a chameleon. They just change themselves with the times. As one thing gets popular, they mold it to that. That's not popular anymore. They turn to this and they turn to that. Which the believers say that they've never changed. But I have never seen a religion change more than the Jehovah's Witnesses.